Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto nerds of all ages, guess what? It's me, at Real Montian, and I am your crypto nerd. All right, welcome. We have a special treat here today. We are live in the Crypto Nerd studio. We've done a ton of these Zoom interviews. We've done a ton of these Google Meets. We've done a ton of these remote interviews, but we have live in the flesh here in Dallas, Texas. We've got Aaron from Headline.
Oh, thanks. How's it going?
Thanks for making it, man.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I'm so glad. So I messaged Aaron over Twitter. I was like, hey, we got cool things going on. We should have a conversation. He's like, yeah, what time zone are you in? I'm like, I'm in Dallas. And he said,
right down the road. Let's do it in person. Where you at? I can be ready in 30 minutes.
Right.
So here we are.
So here we are. 30 minutes later, after messing with the camera for 30 minutes, we're having a conversation about crypto, about Headline, about what's new. So before we get started, maybe just a couple of minutes, let the audience know, who are you? What's Headline, just the overall mission?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hello, audience. I'm Aaron from Headline, and basically I have a software development company, and we focus on the Algorand blockchain, and we build a lot of different exciting software solutions for developers, for small businesses, for soon-to-be enterprise clients as well. What's really cool is because we build a lot of developer tools, we can iterate really quickly. We've built our own SDK, and now we're actually able to create a new application every couple of weeks. So we're constantly coming out with new stuff, and some things are educational, some things are really utility based. We can kind of touch every different aspect of the Algorand ecosystem. It's really exciting.
Excellent.
We can do all that, yeah.
So one of the first things that Headline came out and you sort of surprised a lot of folks was the ability to take Algorand as a payment through a website. So how did that come about? What was that project, and have you had more success with that?
Yeah, so that was ALGO Pay, and essentially what ALGO Pay is it's a embeddable snippet that generates a full payment transaction ability for somebody on their website directly with Algorand payments. And that's really interesting. So I'm trying to remember exactly when we built it, but I was actually here in Dallas when we built it. Because I was visiting family, and I was talking to my mom, and we were talking about a few different things, and just speaking with family, I was like, it'd be really cool if there was a way to do payment transactions directly on your own website. And we were looking at some of the different solutions that are available. And one thing that we noticed is with other solutions, a lot of times what you'll get is an iframe when you're doing a payment transaction on your own website. And what an iframe is basically a window into somebody else's website, so that they're actually hosting the tooling that you need in order to complete your payment. And a lot of times you'll have to pay them a fee and different things. And we were like, let's completely cut out the middleman and make it so that anybody can just accept payments. So we basically built a a blockchain rail for people to be able to either accept payments or do donations directly on their own websites. And at this point, it's between 50 and 60 websites that have integrated it, which is super exciting. We don't have an exact number because we're really about decentralization with it. So it doesn't even have a tracking pixel or anything in it. Mm-hmm. And we kind of just rely on people to tell us once they've integrated it, and then we can check it out on their own websites.
You did have some kind of a contest or bounty or something though when it first rolled out, right? Like who could take the first payment or something along those lines?
Well, so the idea originally was to have, we wanted to give one of the first 100 websites that have integrated it a 500 algo bounty essentially. Right. And that is still active, right? Because we haven't hit 100 websites yet.
Oh, wow.
Which is unfortunate because we would like to be able to give that to somebody, but because the original rules are once we hit 100 websites, and we're still not quite there yet. And
go use it right now.
Yeah,
folks.
Exactly. Be one of those people, and then you could get that 500 algo reward just for integrating it on your website.
That's excellent. I'm not sure why that hasn't gotten more coverage in the overall ecosystem. Is it just because you have other projects that are overshadowing it a little bit, or is it because things just move so quickly in the crypto space?
It's a few different things. For one thing, the developers that have integrated it fully, and some websites have done some really impressive stuff with it. AlgoCharts.net, for example, is one where it is fully integrated into a lot of the different stuff on the platform. They don't talk a whole lot about what they're building or what they're using in their tech stack essentially, right? So if we're not the ones promoting it heavily ourselves, a lot of times that, that word of mouth is it takes a lot longer to get out there just because of, how developers talk about their own tech stack.
Right.
And yeah, because we're building a lot of different stuff, that's just one of the different solutions that we've basically built. But as we continue to grow the team, we're going to end up getting a full sales and marketing department, and it's going to be their job to essentially really promote the adoption of some of these different tools that we're building.
So B2B or
yes, absolutely, because that's really a small business solution, that can be expanded in a lot of really exciting ways with customization. And that's one of the unfortunate things about having a small team. So a lot of times we'll get contacted with ALGO Pay, ALGO Swap, a lot of these different solutions, almost on a daily basis from different developers or websites that are asking for custom integration for these products, right? And that's how a lot of times software development companies make a lot of their money, is from doing custom work.
Right.
But because we have a small team, we have to decline all of that custom work because we can't offer custom solutions yet. We need a much larger development team in order to start taking on custom work like that. Is
it a lack of talent in the area? There's just not enough people? Have you just not grown big enough yet to support a larger staff? At what point in time are you going to say, okay, game on, and we could hire another dozen of these guys or gals?
It's happening right now. So we just, over the last week, we just brought in 2 more developers. We also just brought in another community manager, and now we've got a core team of 8, I believe. I think it's 8. And we have plans to hire a whole bunch more developers, salespeople, marketing, basically everything we need to scale all of our different verticals in the next 2 to 3 months.
Wow. All right. Good timing then. So you heard it here first, folks. Right? We got the
we're on the cusp.
The crescendo was about to hit there. Momentum. Yeah. All right. Good. So that hit, and it made waves, and people are using it, and you got 40 to 60 folks on there. You need another 40, it sounds like. So get out there and use it. What was that next big kind of milestone that you released
after ALGO Pay? So the next thing we did was called ALGO Swap.
Yeah.
And this was really innovative in that we took all the stuff that worked from ALGO Pay, and we made it work for a fully decentralized exchange as well. So we're still using the Tinyman liquidity pools in ALGO Swap, but it allows for websites to basically embed the functionality that they need in order to swap their tokens on their own websites. This was incredibly innovative when it happened, because whether you have Squarespace or WordPress or Weebly or Wix or any of these different website builders, that you would typically never have the opportunity to have actual enterprise grade tooling directly in your website, right? But you could have Squarespace and have the tooling you need to basically host your own decentralized exchange directly on your own platform. And so this is something that's being heavily used by new projects. Let's say, for example, you start either a new nonprofit or a new project, and you want to basically give people the opportunity to get your token and they swap it for algos or something like that. So a lot of times that extra step of having to go to the exchange in a link, whether it be through Tinyman, you can lose 2/3 of your visitors just by having them click out of your website.
Yeah.
So by allowing them to embed that decentralized exchange directly on their own website, it makes it a lot more secure for their users, because they get to benefit from the privacy of the website, and it allows them to keep their audience captured on their own platform when they're swapping tokens or anything like that. And so it's better for them, it's better for the ecosystem as a whole to create something where, if, for example, an exchange went down, you could still technically operate whatever it is you're doing with your tokens, as long as you have your own embedded portal into the liquidity pools directly on your own site too.
Excellent. So for us, so we've got Citrus coming up, we've got KryptoNurd, the Nerd tokens coming out, pre-sales, right? Or early access for some folks who hold the KryptoNurd NFTs. We could embed that on the website itself and preset the smart contract, like what the exchange ratio is, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't even have to use a smart contract for it, because you're basically just interacting with the pools that are already part of the audited smart contracts that Tinyman has. You basically can, and you can customize it too. That's the cool part. You can actually do the styling to perfectly match your own website. And you can basically set the parameters before embedding it, so that people aren't going to be swapping other random tokens on your website, right? You would specifically be setting asset A and asset B. People could choose how much they want to swap, and then they have the access to do that directly on your own website. Yeah, so that you can make it part of your either your customer flow essentially when they're going through the different steps. If they're like, let's say for example, you have people that visit your site, they want to read a little bit of information about it, and they might want to sign up, and they're like, okay, well, I'm interested in supporting this project, right? So then without going anywhere, next step, they could do their swap if they wanted to do that. Next step, they would be able to potentially subscribe to something, all within the privacy and security of your own site.
So this is a double-edged sword, in my opinion. So it's fantastic on one end that it's easy to get into the ecosystem, and there's a lot of folks who watch this channel who want to start their own projects. They have great ideas. They send me messages about it all the time, and I think, wow, that's really cool. I don't have enough time to do that. You're not doing it yet. Somebody else has got to go do it. And so they could create their own ASA. It's relatively easy now on Algorand, inexpensive. The barrier to entry is really cheap, and we've got tools now that make it easy to, there's no KYC to start a liquidity pool on TinyMan.
Right.
And so recently, in fact, the last 24, 48 hours, we've had some folks who are like, oh, I got to pull this token. It's going to come back with a new token. There's a lot of controversy there. Is it almost too easy to create a new project now? What's your feeling on this? Should we make it harder, or is it totally decentralized and hey, buyer beware?
Well, so our philosophy towards decentralization, in a lot of ways is that the market has a way of kind of creating equilibrium. So if, for example, things like this start happening, right, where, some investors get burnt because they were invested in tokens that didn't have a high trust around them or anything like that,
right?
Then
or low liquidity.
Yeah, exactly. So then
right.
investors in general are going to become a little bit more wary and conscious of those kinds of flags. And then that can essentially balance out the situation. That's kind of our viewpoint. We have a very hands-off approach to, should we or shouldn't we give people access to tools, right? Our belief is that, if given the opportunity, the majority of the time, it's actually going to be far more beneficial to the projects that can help than from people that would be interested in taking advantage of it. And we've gotten so many messages and emails from small projects that this was like instrumental in their ability to either raise funds for their project or to develop traction within the community. And that far outweighs any, negativity that could come from it, in our opinion.
I am in lockstep with you there. I firmly believe that, hey, it should be decentralized. The tools are fantastic. I take it upon myself, and Algorand doesn't pay me to do this stuff, but I take it upon myself to educate the community. And I think that that's really where the key is. So I appreciate you and other folks. I know there's a lot of folks who want to get more information out to the community so that they can do their own research, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we throw around that, hey, go do your own research kind of a thing. But if there's no information there, it's tough. So I want to bring as much information as I can to the light of day by having folks like you on the channel so we can do interviews and get information out there. And you're probably one of the better cases. You're easy to find online. All your information is out there. Headlines pretty much, as transparent as you can be as far as, what's going on and what projects are there. And so I think that it's probably best for the community to sort of almost like self-police. And because we don't want help from an outside agency.
Right.
I think that's the kind of help that we don't want. If the government has to come in and start policing us, then things are going to change really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's up to us to take care of it ourselves so that doesn't happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also don't want to create a situation with gatekeepers. And there were some interesting conversations on Twitter about this over the last 2 days or so about, there should be some kind of a committee that kind of determines the validity of a project. So that's where you're getting into some dangerous territory, because you don't want to end up in a situation where, innovation is stifled because of the barrier to entry. And that, on a larger scale, that's the conversation happening about the SEC right now, because the SEC has a dual mandate, right? Their dual mandate is to both protect investors and to facilitate capital creation, right?
Yeah.
But lately, they've really heavily leaned on the protect investors part of their mandate, and they've done very little on the capital formation part. And so what happens is the barrier to entry gets really high, and it makes it really difficult for new projects or, people that might be, have less access to capital to be able to get in the door, which can lead to bigger problems in society. And we're kind of seeing that, but that's what happens when you can, if you over police or over, and finding that middle ground is really important, because you don't want to, end up too lopsided one way or the other.
I'm not sure we have it right yet. You know, clearly we don't, because there's still people who are scammed or make mistakes, so there's still bad actors. So we clearly don't have it right yet, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Let's move on. Let's talk about forum, because I was lucky enough to get in on the forum, sort of the beta. I was one of the earliest users there. It was fun to see like things change, live. Somebody would pop in there, you or Brian, or somebody would pop in there and be like, hey, we're going to do this now. Go check this out. See if your links work now. You posted it this way, try it this way. And so, it's progressed a lot in the last, I don't know, how long has it been? 6 weeks, 8 weeks? Has it been longer?
I think it's been such a short amount of time. Since, oh God, it was probably sometime in November that we went live to now. We just hit 1,000 users today. We just hit that milestone.
Awesome. Congratulations.
That's epic, because it's like, getting people to sign up for something that's, especially, it's different, right? So social media in general is very, very hard to get right.
Yeah.
What you'll see a lot of times is new social media sites will be created, and if the user experience is off even a little bit, people aren't going to use the platform, right? They might sign up, but they won't continue using it.
Yeah.
So getting that right is really important, and because we're injecting the proof of stake element into it, where with Forum, before it was 250 HDL tokens you had to hold in your wallet in order to sign into the site. We just reduced it to 100.
I was going to ask if that was going to change.
Well, it used to be 1,000. It was initially 1,000 when we launched, and then it was 500, I think. Then it was 250. And so we're going to have to continue reducing the cost to use Forum as the token value continues to have an upward trajectory, essentially. And so basically, it's a new kind of user experience. So like basically you sign in with your Algorand wallet, and it checks the balance of HDL tokens in your wallet. And if it's above a certain amount, you're able to essentially log in the platform. So, that alone is a barrier to entry that is a little bit more of a challenge to onboard new users through, especially because it's something that they're not familiar with. And then making sure that they have a positive user experience inside the platform has also been challenging, that I think we're starting really getting into a stride for. The amount of user engagement is really, really good inside the platform, and our growth's been really organic up until now. So we're super happy with all the progress we've made already with it.
Good. I haven't noticed, any abuse or bad actors really in the community.
We are so fortunate that we have not had to do a single moderation. We haven't had a single instance of moderation that we've had to do on the platform yet.
Excellent.
We are so lucky that we haven't had to do that, because we do not have a moderation team specifically to police Forum. Right? The team is the team. So if we ended up in a situation where there was a lot of abuse happening on the platform, we would be completely unable to effectively police it, right? So, and then actually that kind of like confirms our entire thesis about a proof of stake social network, is by basically giving all of the users an incentive to see the platform succeed. You're essentially incentivizing and rewarding positive social engagement. And that's kind of it's a demonstration of how good of a job we're doing with that we haven't had to take a single action to, censorship action or anything like that because of abuse on the platform.
Yeah. If somebody went in and they were a bad actor, they'd be hurting themselves.
Exactly.
So yes, right. I see the deterrent there. What was the overall goal when you started creating that? Was there an ethos around that? What was it? Just a safe space for the community? Was it to disseminate information? Was it for education? Was it for what was the thought process behind creating
Definitely.
That?
So like I said, it's a proof of stake social network, in that we were looking at the traditional players in social media space, and they all essentially have the same business model. They're all an ad revenue based business model. And we discovered that that's actually a really big problem, because when you're incentivizing advertisers, because that's where you're getting your revenue from, advertisers, their goal is to sell a product, right? And so what you'll see a lot of times if you take advertising classes or marketing is that, in a really cynical way of thinking about it, is it's psychologically manipulating consumers to purchase more products, right? And so when that is your business model as a social network, you're likely to incentivize a lot of really unhealthy social interaction, because it's better for advertisers.
Right.
So with Forum, our goal was to basically rethink about what a social network should be incentivized around, And instead of having an ad revenue based incentive model, we figured that a subscription or proof of stake model, to be blockchain specific, is a much more healthy revenue model. Because if, the people that are building the social network, if that's their position, then it can foster a lot of positive social interaction. And we're actually seeing that happen in real time to basically corroborate our entire thesis for the platform.
Excellent. What's the next milestone? 10,000 users? What do you think? What's that next celebratory?
That's what people are saying today, but internally, 1,100, 1,200, 13, every 100 users are
just incremental.
Honestly, every user is exciting. Yeah. Every user is exciting, especially when they start to have really healthy organic conversations and are developing relationships organically and in a healthy environment. Every single time it happens, it's basically validating our entire thesis for building it to begin with.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes. So there's quite a few folks in the ALGO fam that I interact a lot on Twitter. It seems to be there's a bunch of folks there. There's a fair amount still on Telegram. Discord there's a lot of folks in Discord, but there's not that many active users. I find that it's the same sort of 150 folks just over and over and over. I put up a video and I got 1.5 million impressions, but when I look at the viewer usage, it's 150 folks. They just watch everything. Yeah. And I appreciate you. but to get 1,000 folks in, I think in this early stage speaks volumes to the potential. Because you attracted that many individual users, not just one-time users. I don't know what the statistics are, but I would bet a fair amount are repeat users. Yeah. Active. Yeah. So what kind of future activities? Are you just going to let it kind of roam and see what it does, or is there another evolution for that?
Oh, we have a lot of big plans for it. So, because right now there are aspects of it that we really want to improve on. Like, for example, for your news feed, essentially you actually have to click on a post in order to be able to interact with it. And we really want to have tweet style posts as well, 140 characters. You can interact with them directly on your main news feed, right? Because we don't believe that Twitter itself has, systemic issues with the structure or the framework of it. Yeah. It's more the algorithms behind it, or like how you said, you had 1.5 million impressions, but only so many of those people actually interacted with it. A lot of that has to do with the algorithms that Twitter is suggesting it to people, which go back to it being an ad revenue based model and how much those people are likely to buy something because of them watching something you've created. Right. So it goes back to that whole psychologically manipulating perspective. Right. And with Forum, by
so the evil empire has decided that those 150 people are more likely to spend money
on something, and it could be so abstracted, right? Between them watching your video and it triggering something in their brain that at some point makes them buy something that would then create more value for Twitter. It is a really kind of disturbing business model when you think about it on that kind of a micro level. But it really, a lot of it's automated now. And if you were to ask one Twitter engineer, they wouldn't be able to explain it all to you, because so much of it is automated, compartmentalized, and it's extremely good at its job, right? So the fact that we're able to kind of create a new environment for people to be able to interact with each other that isn't going to be heavily influenced by those algorithms is part of what makes it such an interesting organic experience for everyone.
Okay. All right. So we've already rattled off, I think, 3 separate projects, and that's more than, most people that get into this space, they think, hey, I got this one thing, I'm going to do it really well. And this is just a portion of your portfolio. We didn't even get into really the kind of what I consider the juicy stuff. But what do you say against, when people give you the criticism, well, you're spread too thin, you're doing too much, just focus on one thing. And if you've been in the VC circles, a lot of times you'll get that advice. How do you combat that? Because clearly you've got a wide bandwidth. You're let's just do it all the time. Let's see.
Right. So, it's important to not just ignore criticism, right? We take all criticism really seriously, and because most people that are going to level any kind of criticism, you should appreciate them for taking the time and effort to do it. And a lot of our biggest supporters were one-time critics, right? So that's our perspective towards criticism in general, and specifically about, are we doing too much? For most people, that would be true. right? They would be like, you clearly have more than you're able to handle with what you're doing. And a lot of it has to do with what Web3 is and why we're able to do so much. So basically with Web3, you can create applications that can essentially run themselves, right? So a lot of the stuff we build, we don't have to do frequent updates with, we can build like production ready tools, or even things that we consider in beta, but still work very well. Like things like ALGO Pay, ALGO Swap, these things do not have bugs in any kind of way that inhibits their ability to function, right? So
simplicity is genius.
They're very simple to use. They work very well. It can really help us grow essentially our suite of tools that we do. So that's an important part, right? A lot of what we build is Web3 based, and a big piece of it are automated. And then the other important thing for people to recognize is that, so one of our core things that we build is called Pipeline UI. And it's essentially a developer toolkit that we build in collaboration with the Algorand Foundation. And essentially we build front-end tooling, SDK stuff, a lot of stuff for developers to be able to basically learn how to interact on the Algorand blockchain, build demos and everything like that.
Right.
And so in that process of building a lot of different developer tooling, we can easily iterate consumer and production applications on top of, right? So we're basically already doing all of this work in a range of different areas, because that's kind of our core product, is to basically build a foundation to build all kinds of interesting stuff on top of.
Here's the backbone of what you need to actually build the rest of it.
And then what we're doing is we're demonstrating production applications on top of our own framework. And so that's kind of our core that we're able to iterate on top of very quickly. And the cool part is, the farther we get into the production of this thing, the quicker we can iterate these new applications, right? Just the last week, we came out with 3 new applications in the last week.
Wow.
Okay. And that's how much quicker every day.
What were the 3 applications this last week?
Right. So the first one was ALGO Vote, and this is the first part of our DoW toolkit.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I did see that.
So basically, with ALGO Vote, you can, if you're a manager of a DAO, you can not only plan your voting periods, but you can actually launch the smart contracts and mint the governance tokens in one application. And then when your DAO members are going to interact with it, that's actually an embeddable snippet like ALGO Pay and ALGO Swap that you can put directly on your own website that can take the votes for the members of your DAO.
Excellent.
So and this is a production application we have. It's still, we consider it still in beta because it's still everything in Web3 is experimental.
Yeah.
But it's still a production application, and that people can integrate this on their sites and start using it right now. So we actually started a grant program. We were putting 5,000 algos in a grant program for DAOs to kind of promote the integration of this into their applications.
Interesting.
Into their DAOs. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's next? There's so much more to do with the DAOs. That's a great like intro, I think, there. But what's next in that DAO world? You got SDKs, you got some more blueprint stuff. What else is?
So the next thing we're doing is called DoW Deposit, and this is what we consider an essential pillar of DAO infrastructure that needs to be built, and it's for capital formation. It's efficient, effective, decentralized capital formation for DAOs and for people operating in the Web3 space. And so we had a big breakthrough today on this, actually, the smart contracts for it, because it's using inner transactions to essentially hard code in different rules at different points in the app's life cycle. Basically, we're looking at fundraising as an inverted Kickstarter, right? So with Kickstarter, you have an entrepreneur essentially raising money from the public, right? But with DoW Deposit, it's essentially a group of investors that get together, they pool their money, and then they select their entrepreneur or project or DAO structure that they want to fund. And so once all the funds are pooled into it, the only person that can remove the funds is the person that's been selected for the other side of the contract. Once those funds are all completely withdrawn, any additional funds put into the contract are proportionally distributed to the original investors in perpetuity.
Okay. Can that be multi-sig, or is it always just one? How does that work?
Between which part?
The anybody who can extract or receive. How does that?
There's different ways you can customize it. The cool part about inner transactions is inner transactions can do a lot of stuff that you don't actually need all of the different like logic sig type steps for that you needed before that. And this is a TL5 innovation. That this is the first application we've built like this that is so incredibly innovative is that basically the application itself can create or like hard code new rules as each different piece of the life cycle is completed. So there are different points that we have. We have a big flow chart for this.
Yeah.
Basically, we had to create a big flow chart just so that we could keep track of where all these different markers needed to be for different pieces of it to kick on.
Okay.
Essentially.
How important is it for your team to keep track of what Algorand is doing? And do they send out like, here's what's coming, so that like as soon as this is released, you can move to the next phase of your project? And how far ahead are they thinking to kind of like cascade down to where it would impact your business?
It's super important, and not just on the core protocol part, but ecosystem in general. Like, for example, I think I've watched every single KryptoNurd video, right? And I highly recommend all other project leads to also watch all KryptoNurd videos.
Thank you.
All Recoup videos, all JT Invest in You videos, right? So basically you learn so much about the ecosystem, about the protocol, about the things that are happening by, staying really up to date with the ecosystem. And on the protocol side, we read all of the new material that they release, all of the different updates to the SDKs and, with what's come out with Teal 5. And we try to think really on top of it because for one thing, we can operate and develop a lot more efficiently if we can, use their newest innovation, right? Because with intertransactions, it's so much more efficient and faster than if you were to try to do it previously with logic sigs and everything like that.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it can cut the development time, in a three quarters less time to develop something. It's incredible how much quicker you can build.
Just
stuff.
moves the pace.
I mean, it's really a smart chain now at this point. With allowing the apps to basically do intertransactions. Yeah, you can add so much more intuitive design into a smart contract construction. So yeah, I would say it's extremely important for developers to kind of like, keep their thumb on the pulse of what's happening on the protocol.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There used to be this old rule about, the speed of computers, right? You got the 386 and then it would double and then you got the 46 and then you got the Pentium, and then, right? And they were like, wow, the next iteration, the time period is becoming shorter and shorter. And it used to be, we'd have to wait a few years for, the Apple II to come out or, whatever it was. And now with blockchain, it seems like we're getting these advances, like you said, like months, before the next real significant milestone or advancement comes out. It just goes to show like the speed of the growth of the entire industry, regardless of what's happening with the price action or what's happening with whatever we might see on the news cycle or occasionally some bad actors. It seems like it is just a locomotive just plowing ahead. And the thing about a locomotive is the more momentum it has, like it doesn't matter what's in front of it. It's just going to blast through it because it's just got all of that energy pushing itself forward, and it just is picking up steam. So your headline is picking up steam. I remember the first time I saw it, and I was one of those folks that was a little critical initially. So the very first video, I was like, "What is this?" The website was kind of dated. You had some old news articles or something in there, and you guys were still kind of stealth a little bit. You hadn't come out with anything really yet. You had part of the website looked like it had a lot of news information on it, and I was like, "What is this? This is a news company. Their news isn't even new." Like I didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you started coming out with this, and you came out with that, and then you've just been significantly picking up steam and proving yourself to the community by meeting folks like me, by going to events, by putting yourself out there, by coming up with something new and saying, "Hey, this is what it is. Good, bad, ugly. It's just it is what it is. It's simple. It's sweet. Go ahead and use it." And I encourage you to grow and tell us some good stories about it and give us some feedback. So what's next for you now that you've picked up all this momentum? What's got you really excited about that next milestone?
Yeah. So right now we're entering a growth period, right? So we spent the last year almost building a really strong foundation for what we see as 4 or 5 different revenue verticals that we haven't turned on yet. Basically, we're going to start generating a lot of profit in the next year by building out the development team, finishing up these different projects that are really ambitious. Our most ambitious project is called ALGO Cloud. And this is essentially a SaaS platform so basically our philosophy with Web3 is that
so a lot of the core Web3 people believe you should basically throw out everything from Web2 and rebuild it in a completely decentralized way. Our philosophy is more of a hybrid one, where we believe that some stuff works really well from Web2 and some stuff works way better from Web3. So we're bringing those together into a SaaS platform for either individual investors, for small businesses, for enterprise clients, that's going to basically hook all of our different applications in together, as well as have basically templates for either whether you have a hedge fund or if you're an NFT marketplace or an NFT creator, that's going to be able to do a lot of practical things. Like you'll be able to do invoicing on chain. You'll be able to do bill paying. You'll be able to sign contracts. You'll also have a fully customizable analytics dashboard if you want to track different DeFi exposure. If you're building a DAO, you'll be able to do all of your DAO management within one platform. And you can essentially, like, if you want to do like a full enterprise build of this, you can get a completely white labeled algo cloud with your specific use case. Or you can have either an individual one or a small business version of it.
So I can run payroll through this?
You'll be able to do everything.
All right.
And not only that, but
you're getting paid now.
Every one of your clients or customers can have their own private dashboard.
Okay.
So you can essentially partition this out indefinitely for your entire either company or your entire ecosystem within the larger Algorand ecosystem. It has infinite scalability, and it has file storage with AWS. It has Google authentication for logging in. So it has a lot of core Web 2 stuff. It has email. It also has all of our different decentralized applications, and it's going to have webhooks for your major DeFi players as well, so that you'll actually be able to interact with them directly within one platform.
So just selfishly, we're coming up with a website. It has reviews. The community comes and they put in a review. Before you come in, you got to sign up, obviously. Can I set up some kind of automatic distribution for my 150 contributors or whatever? And I can distribute the bounties that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it's going to allow people to build a community in such a strong way by allowing every single community member to have their own private dashboard, or whether it be news for your project, or if you're getting rewards for your token, or it's going to have so many different use cases, specifically because we're merging the best stuff from Web 2 and from Web 3 in one platform.
You mentioned DAO management there. And I had been thinking of like a DOS, like a DAO as a service, like just a DAO management facilitation. Like there's enough business there, but I think there's definitely a need, because it's a sort of a complicated, and it seems nebulous to a lot of folks. Like how do I manage this? How do I go about that?
With Algo Cloud, if you had a white label Algo Cloud, you could actually have your software as a service or DAO as a service in its own Algo Cloud. So basically all of the like really like enterprise grade software you need to build that SaaS product would be within your own white labeled Algo Cloud. So that you could actually basically just deploy this new SaaS platform that you'd be able to onboard all of your own essentially SaaS businesses underneath too, or DAOs.
That's really
within your platform. Yeah.
Okay. What's the timetable for that?
So our first piece of it that we're fully doing is we're doing all custom API endpoints for a full analytics dashboard for the Algorand blockchain. So I think we're going to be ready for some initial beta users in like a week or two. We're that close to. We've been working on this for like last 3 or 4 months, basically nonstop. And all of that stuff is already done. All the user roles, the partitioning, all of that kind of stuff is already built into the platform. We're finishing up our analytics, and then we're going to be able to start bringing in some beta users for it.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely exciting. So where's Headline in 5 years? But let's shoot for the moon. What's it look like in 5 years? Are you spinning companies off, or you just
Ideally, in 5 years, we would have multiple headquarters in different parts of the world. We would have enough we'd be a large enough force within the blockchain space to rival some of the really large players on different chains.
Yeah.
You could kind of think of what we're trying to build as kind of like a Google of Web3, or Google within the blockchain space. And we're going to be touching a lot of different businesses and different parts of the ecosystem. But we're doing it in a way of like trying to find, healthy solutions for some of the biggest problems with Web2.
Okay.
And that's kind of like one of our core, goals.
Big picture. Algorand is not that big yet. You know, if you were doing this on ETH, you might have a head start. In fact, there might even be companies that are trying to do this on ETH. ETH doesn't have the same functionality. They can't really do what you're doing. But how much does the Algorand ecosystem need to grow to help you? Or how big do you need to grow to help the Algorand ecosystem?
Right.
Like, which one is...
That is an extremely important question, because our success is entirely predicated on Algorand becoming like a top 10 or top 5 blockchain.
Yeah.
So we are acutely aware of that, right? You talk about what our biggest, what is one of our chief like concerns, or where would we see our weakness being, right? It'd be like, and so then every day when we get up, we think about ways to try to spur and promote Algorand development, Algorand ecosystem development. How can we more effectively onboard more people into the Algorand ecosystem, because our success is going to be so dependent on Algorand success.
Okay. Two more questions. I know we've been going long, so we'll wrap it up here. Second to last question. What's the biggest mistake that you've made so far in this journey? And I'll give you a chance to tell us what you learned from it. Because there's always, there's that stumble moment that you turned into a teachable moment. So what was that for you? What could you go back in and be like, wow, I shouldn't have done that, but here's what we learned.
Let's see, that's a tough one. I would probably say expecting there to be a market for a product before you've built a product. Because sometimes we build a lot of stuff. Sometimes the things I expect to be really successful, they kind of don't get that big of a bang. It's more of kind of a whimper. Some people are really interested in some of this stuff, but there isn't as much appeal for certain products as there are for others. But sometimes when you're in the middle of building something, you have tunnel vision and you can't really see the big picture. And you're like, oh, once this is done, it's going to be huge. Everybody's going to love it. It's going to catch on instantly, right? But when you have those expectations, you're going to get a lot of disappointment, right? Because especially if you haven't done a lot of market research beforehand. And a lot of our most successful applications we've built, we had no idea we're even going to be successful.
Yeah.
So when you go in with really high expectations, you can be disappointed a lot. Or if you go in with low expectations, you might not be prepared for the success you're going to have. So I would say properly balancing what the value and demand of an application is, through that iterative process.
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line there. And sometimes when you make a product and there's no audience for it yet, you've got to manufacture that audience.
A good example would be ALGO. So ALGO is something we created.
Oh, yeah, that's relatively new, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That allows for on-chain data storage. We saw it as a way, what if there was a way you could actually sign transactions with your real signature on-chain, right? And we basically created an algorithm that can, you can take a physical signature that you've written on either a touch screen or something like that, and it'll encode it directly into the note field of a transaction. When we first created this, we were like, oh, this is incredible. This is going to be so groundbreaking. And there was a lot of initial excitement, but it wasn't being used, right? Because there was no way for people to effectively use it. So then we had to go back and think, okay, what are some ways we can improve it? And then we're like, more importantly, what partners can we work with to kind of spur adoption for this? So just 24 hours ago, ALGO, one of the biggest NFT marketplaces on Algorand, actually fully integrated ALGO into their NFT minting process. Essentially taking us one big step towards ALGO adoption ecosystem-wide for NFT minting. Now, whether or not NFT creators decide to use it to sign their NFTs is another question entirely. But the response that we've gotten has been incredibly positive. And the core development team at ALGO, they love it as a innovative and value-added way for NFT creators to appeal to their customer base.
Yeah,
that was one of those things where we had to build the infrastructure and the audience for it.
Yeah,
too.
I think that's really a good case in point of how much the ecosystem relies on each other. We're not just an island here. All these puzzle pieces sort of have to interlock in some way, shape, or form. So that way, there's use cases. So somebody can stake Headline, or they can swap it out on Tiny Man. They can swap it back if they need to. They can go mint something on ALGO. Eventually, you're gonna be able to buy NFTs with Headline, I'm sure. There's gonna be you're gonna be able to do a bunch of these other things, not just gems, or there's gonna be a lot of interaction there. First NFT I ever minted was on Gems though.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So that was it was really tiny at the time. I was one of their first users, I think. Just a random NFT made out there. It's floating around somewhere. It's a KryptoNurd original. It doesn't have the signature yet, but I don't know. We'll go back and figure that out. Okay, last question. So we talked a little bit about other projects, and I think that's very valuable. What other projects are you looking at right now? What excites you in the Algorand ecosystem?
That's a great question. I think what's happening with C3 is extremely interesting. Some of the core team members from Rand Labs are building a really innovative bridging solution between multiple chains. So that's something we're watching very closely. Reach, of course. So, we actively build certain things with Reach too. We just finished a boilerplate that we released a couple of days ago. That was that third application I was telling you about from this week, right? We built basically a boilerplate that allows Reach developers to deploy those Reach smart contracts directly from the front end of a website, which can really help speed up the development process by getting to kind of see how users might interact with something on the front end. So all of the innovation they do, we watch very closely and are very excited about as well. ALGO Mint is another one. A lot of the stuff with bridges we find extremely interesting, and we want to start, doing more bridge development type stuff as well. So all of those projects are ones we're very interested in and very excited about.
The future is multi-blockchain, and anything that has that interoperability or allows folks to free flow both directions. A lot of folks, when they talk about bridges, they're just like, well, how do we gain audience over here? And it's not just about what can we take from other blockchains. I think it's what can we give too. And you got to have that sort of reciprocation in order to really attract some larger audiences. It's important for Headline to grow as big as your vision is.
I agree. We just so we did a NFT on Ethereum on OpenSea as kind of a interesting way to gauge the interest of some of the stuff we're doing outside of the Algorand ecosystem, and we see those sorts of outreach opportunities as ways to basically grow the Algorand ecosystem. So we were able to, I think we ended up selling it for more like 1.5 ETH or something, NFT we created. But all of the funds we raised from that are going to go directly into Algorand ecosystem development. Right? So we're going to put all the funds we raised from these these bridge sort of or extra blockchain sorts of endeavors, all of that funding is going to go directly back into the ecosystem.
Good. All right. Well, keep bringing it back home. As much as I love to give it to the community, I love when it comes back in too. All right. I tell you what, I wish we had more time. I know we haven't even touched on all of the projects that you have. I think we would need like another couple of hours. But I got to tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate you sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have, and we're going to have to do it again.
Absolutely. All right. Great.
Sounds good.